Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And well, today is Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yummity yum. It's like a dream. Yum, 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 yummity yum. Bring your sour cream.
Well, that's right, folks. Today is Taco Tuesday, where we celebrate the diversity of these United States through food, which is probably the best way to celebrate diversity because, the way in which we do diversity here is, quite frankly, we just take what's good from other places, the stuff that we brought here, that our folks brought here, and we just make it better. And nothing says that better than the taco. Maybe the pizza. I think you could probably say the pizza. Then there's the hot dog, or der Wiener Schnitzel, the Wiener, which we now call the hot dog. But anyway, tons of opportunities to enjoy fine cuisine, diversity of cuisine here in these United States. But before we get going, we're going to get the show kicked off the way we usually do, and that is starting off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. Now, they make rifle and pistol caliber barrels. They are available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. If you've bought an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels, so why not get another one? Let your experience, your next project start it off over at Hitman Industries. And then we've got the California Republican Assembly, working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. Just go to cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. They like helping Americans wear guns so much they're willing to give you a discount. All you have to do is use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get your hog holster on a discount today. And then finally, if you're looking for gear, and now's about the time, well, it's always a good time to be buying new gear. The place where you will find all things tactical except the gun is uscombatgear.com. Just go to uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have competitive pricing. Matter of fact, they specialize in group sales, and they have the best customer service on the market. Take a moment, check them out today, uscombatgear.com. Also, if you have not already done so, please make sure you sign up for the 2A newsletter. You will find it at 2anews.us. That's 2, the number 2, the letter A, and then news.us. 2anews.us. Go there and have your Second Amendment news delivered to you Monday through Friday in your inbox. Imagine you don't have to go out to the 2A News websites in order to find it. You don't have to go out to the mainstream media. You don't have to go to the blogosphere. You don't have to go out to YouTube or to Rumble and find it, because it'll be sent right to you. Make it real simple. Once again, that's 2anews.us. Sign up today for the 2A newsletter. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's news stories. And we're going to start with this first one here is a Democrat who decided to come out and basically, I don't even know, I have no idea what to say about this, because if there was ever an argument and ever a point like where we can talk about what the goal of the Democratic Socialists of America are, or what it is, I've said this before, and I don't know how many times, but their goal is to take over the Democratic Party, not just take over the party. Eventually, their goal is to take over the entire country, right? They want to fundamentally change all that is America. They want to undo all of the values that are American. And how do they plan on doing that? Well, they plan on doing that by taking over internally. They plan on doing that through, they're going to to the degree that they can get it done, they plan on doing it through nonviolent revolution. They plan on doing it by taking over and winning our elections. And that's their goal. And they're starting off right now. They're starting off with the low-hanging fruit for them, and that is in the Democratic Party. That is winning Democratic primaries, right? They're going for very, very liberal seats, and they are seeking to unseat Democrats, right? Well, here you have a young lady who is running for office, who's running for Congress, and she basically says the quiet part out loud.
I think it's particularly important, not just for our community in Tigray, but communities of the global South, period, right? There's a certain reckoning that we are going to have with the global world order as it exists today, and the way that it fundamentally will have to shift going forward, right? The responsibility that we have as Americans, the recognition that is going to be required of us, of the exploitative and extractive nature that we play on the global scale and the global stage, is only going to be challenged if we are getting represented by people who understand that on a fundamental level, right? And that means getting more immigrants into office. That means getting more people who have heritage in the global South into office, because that's where those decisions are made specifically.
So here you have Democrat Melat Kiros. She is a Democratic Socialist. She says the U.S. must elect more immigrants from global South to challenge global world order. So in other words, what she is saying is that we have to elect people who are from the worst of the worst places to live, the places where everyone is running to hear from because socialism has destroyed their economies, because they don't know how to run their own country. Let's just be real. They're doing such a poor job. Socialists are doing such a poor job of running these countries. They're running here. And that the way in which to help America is to make it more like where they came from by electing those very same people to office, you know, the ones who screwed up where they came from. Anyway, let's read a little bit of the piece here from Breitbart. Socialist Milat Kiros, who is a Democrat, who unseated 15-term Representative Diana Daggett in Colorado's 1st Congressional District, Democrat primary last month, says the United States must elect more immigrants, specifically from the global South, to usher in a reckoning with the global world order. There's a certain reckoning that, well, I'm not even going to read what she said, but there's the video there. Here it says Kiros herself is an immigrant from Ethiopia whose father was a beneficiary of the diversity visa lottery in May 1997, just weeks after her birth. The program was created by the Immigration Act of 1990, which was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush. Diversity Visa Lottery gives up to 55,000 visas every year to foreign nationals from a multitude of countries, including those with known terrorist problems, such as Afghanistan, Algeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Syria, Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuela, Yemen, and Uzbekistan. For years, research has consistently shown that the larger a region's foreign-born population, the more likely that region is to vote for Democrats over Republicans. Most significantly, in the 2024 election, surveys of foreign-born voters, those are legal immigrants who eventually secured naturalized American citizenship, found overwhelming support for failed Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris over Trump. A survey from the National Partnership for New Americans showed that 55% of naturalized citizen voters said they would definitely vote for Harris, compared to just 41% who said they would vote, who said the same thing about Trump. By November 2023, the Biden administration had surged naturalizations so much that naturalized citizen voters would account for 1 in 10 eligible voters in the 2024 election, giving enormous electoral power to Americans who were born outside the U.S. In the 2019, The Atlantic's Roland Brownstein found that nearly 90% of House congressional districts with foreign-born population above the national average were won by Democrats. This means every congressional district with foreign-born population exceeding 15.5% has a 90% chance of electing Democrats and only a 10% chance of electing Republicans. Now, what this is pointing out here is this is an electoral strategy. And I hate to say this, but let's just be honest. In particular, people are coming from these third world countries. These are people who are coming from socialist governments, and their goal is, once again, to change and transform the United States into the socialist Marxist hellholes that they came from. See, they want to make things more equal. And the problem with a lot of these folks is that in the socialist hellhole where they came from, they were the socialists who were running things. Their families were the socialists who were running things. They were the ones who had plenty of money, right? While everyone else was living in squalor and poverty, they were doing well. So when they come here, they want to do the same thing. They want to put socialism in place so that the rest of us, so rather than going out and, earning control, rather than going out and making a living, rather than going out and earning money, rather than going out and starting a business and building something from there, they just want to redistribute it. And that's what happened in their countries. In their countries where they came from, they just redistributed wealth. They just took it from them and gave it to themselves and then pretended to care about the people. Well, they want to do the same thing now. They want to take from those who've earned, not to give to the poor. That's what they say. But it's going to go to a government program. It's going to go to an NGO. It's going to go to some entity that they control. And they're going to make sure that they are paid handsomely to control it. In the meantime, pennies on the dollar will actually make it to the people that they claim that they are going to help. That is idiotic. If you want to know what the big issue is with a lot of the fraud that's taking place right now, that's exactly what it is. This is not something new for a lot of these folks. They're literally doing what they did in the country that they came from. Ilhan Omar's family were part of the controlling, the dictators, the oligarchs in the country that they came from over in Somalia. That's who Ilhan Omar's family is. And so now she comes here and she becomes part of the political elite, part of the controlling group. She finds a place, Minnesota, that's naturally going to give way to left-wing politics. She says, I'm an attractive person of color, so they can't say no to me, and if they do, we'll call them racist. And then we will set up programs where we can siphon money off from the taxpayers. We'll send some of it back to Somalia. We'll use some of it to buy ourselves some nice cars and fancy places to live. And then put it right back into politics to help elect more people who can expand the grift. I really do try and fight the idea of saying, this isn't racist. Okay, saying this information is not racist. Culture matters. And I hate to say this, and culture is regardless of skin color. We're talking about right now, we're talking about culture. We're talking about a culture coming from Somalia, coming from some of these other countries, some coming from these countries where literally you learn how to manipulate the system to benefit you and those around you, those you want to benefit at the expense of everybody else. That's the culture that many of these folks come from. It has nothing to do with their race. It has everything to do with the culture that they came from. And by the way, it's not all Somalians. It's not even most Somalians. Let me be clear about that too. It's not most of these, but in many of these third world countries, in many of these places that are run by dictators and oligarchs and Marxists and socialists, because by the way, eventually socialism leads to a dictator because somebody's got to be in charge. This whole democratic socialist stuff, no. What happens is they want to get you to democratically elect people who will then take all of your rights away from you. That's the only democratic part about it is you at least get to select the people who are going to initially take all of your rights and all of your stuff. But that's who they want to elect because that's who they keep electing. You don't believe this is true? Take a look at Gaza. As much as people want to say that Israel controlled Gaza, they didn't. They didn't. They pulled out in 2006, gave them the ability to elect their own government. And the first thing that they did was they elected terrorists, Hamas. And then those terrorists proceeded to take any aid that was sent into Gaza and they used it to build terror tunnels. They used it to buy weapons. They used it to fund to basically fund their intifada against Israel. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. The information's all there. Those terror tunnels, those hundreds of miles of terror tunnels didn't come from nowhere. Did not come from nowhere. See, the reason why people are so attracted to Marxism and so attracted to socialism is because it says, I'm going to take from them and give it to you. Oh, no. Actually, let me be clear. It doesn't even say I'm going to take from them and give it to you. It says, you deserve more. You work really hard. You are so oppressed. Look at everything that they have. Look at all that they have. Why do they have that? They don't deserve that. Let's take it from them. And you know, they never actually say they're going to give it to you. They said they're going to redistribute it. What does redistribution mean? It means they're going to take from them and give to themselves and their friends. And they're going to continue to blame them because, well, they can't blame themselves, right? I mean, when their system doesn't work, when their system fails, it can't be their fault because then you won't let them stay in charge. So it's got to be someone externally. And in many of these countries, that's why they blame the United States of America. There was just a dude who was on Fox. He is the vice chair or the co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of, I think, New York or Manhattan or Upper Manhattan. Anyway, but this kid, his family came from Peru, right? And once again, they were part of the socialist Marxist leadership there. The economy completely and utterly failed, so they fled Peru, which, by the way, is decided to move more towards a free market economy. But then he blames capitalism. He blames the free market economy for the things that his family's policies did. And then he comes here and he wants to implement the same policies here. Folks, I will continue to say this. Not culture matters, and not all cultures are equal. They're just not. And if you want to know what a culture, what sort of outcome you will get when you implement a certain culture, just look at what it's already done. Look at what it's already done. Look at what it's already wrought. I mean, I'm not saying that what we have here in the United States is perfect. It's far from it, but it's better than anything else. Our free market economy has lifted more people out of poverty globally. Remember that. It's important for us to continue to point that out. It's important for us to stand up and be vocal in our communication of that. Anyway. Elections are important, and I think Democrats realize they're important.
With my commitment, we are here to share information I learned of a few days ago. In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. When New Jerseyans applied for a driver's license or identification at the MVC, they were asked if they wanted to register to vote. In the case of this error, some individuals indicated that they weren't citizens and weren't eligible to vote, but the software registered them anyway. The error in the software was corrected a year later in June of 2024. That is more than 2 years ago. I learned of this last Wednesday, and I immediately ordered my chief counsel to launch a comprehensive investigation. Currently, the Division of Elections is working to ensure anyone who is illegally registered is removed from the voter rolls. Initial analysis shows that fewer than 400 newly registered individuals voted in an election due to this software error. They were registered as Democrats, Republicans, and the majority unaffiliated, and were scattered across the state. But let me be clear. This entire situation is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that the vendor released software with such a glaring error. It's unacceptable that the MVC took a year to get this issue fixed. And it's unacceptable that no one in the previous administration brought this to light, demanded accountability, or took action when it happened years ago.
Completely 100% agree. Now, mind you, I want to say this is not the first time this has happened. This also happened in the state of California. Now, state of California, the then Gil Cedillo, who was the now the senator for the state of California, one of the senators, he was the Secretary of State and admitted that tens of thousands of Californians, of California's residents, not legal citizens, but non-citizens were actually registered to vote in California. There's also a study that came out recently that shows that several 100,000 people are registered to vote in states like California, New Jersey, New York, and I think one other, or I think Oregon or Washington, that are not supposed to be registered. Some of them are non-citizens. Some of them are people who have moved. Some of them are people who have died. All that having been said, this is a great example, and this is the reason why the White House has been asking for states to comply and send their voter information to the federal government so that they can verify that these folks are who they say they are, that they're supposed to be, that they're legal citizens, that our voting rolls have been taken care of. Now, what's happening now is the federal government saying, look, we're going to withhold money. We're going to withhold whatever. We're not going to allow you to run our elections if you are not going to submit to making sure that this stuff gets taken care of. Now, I want to give this governor some credit because she could have hit it just like her predecessor did, but she saw it. She's like, it's there, it's happening. We need to deal with this, and we need to get these folks off the voter rolls. Now, I also want to be clear about this. So far, no one's delivered evidence that these folks have actually voted. Now, the problem is that there's almost no way to do it post-election. There really is, because once you separate the especially when you're doing mobile voting, once you separate the ballot from the envelope, you don't know whose ballot that is. So you don't know if they're voting, and you don't know who they're voting for, which you're not supposed to know who anyone is voting for. But I mean, the problem is that our election laws are set up such that it's very difficult to catch the fraud after the election. I mean, we're so protective of the voters' privacy, and we have so much reverence for the process that if you can't deal with the things, if you can't look at things that, okay, this is a potential open door beforehand and close that door beforehand, it's almost impossible to show whether or not that open door actually did result in voter fraud. It's almost impossible. First of all, you don't have enough time. After the November election, and by the way, in places like California, where it takes them 3 weeks to finish counting the votes, they have to certify the election within a month. So you have to go through and count all the ballots. You have to find out if there's a problem, where the problem is, and then you have to have a person who is the right person in the right jurisdiction to actually file the lawsuit in the right court in time. Otherwise, it's moot because there's nothing really you can do about it. The election's already been certified. So there's almost nothing you can do about it after the fact. You got to do it. You handle it all before. And that's, by the way, what President Trump was trying to do when he talks about all these people who are registered to vote, who've moved, who've died, who are not legal citizens. That's what he's talking about. Look, you say you want me to prove that it's a problem. The fact that they are there is a problem. So let's deal with it, right? Deal with it. Fix it. Don't wait until there's actual evidence. It's like you have to wait until someone's murdered to say, hey, by the way, we encourage people to murder people. You have to wait until someone's actually stolen an election. And by the way, more and more information is coming out about what happened in Georgia. And I'll just put it this way. I don't know that Georgia's electoral votes are enough to have switched the election, the 2020 election. I don't know if it was enough to have done that. But I do know that they're already proving that a bunch of ballots got counted that shouldn't have been counted. That there's a major problem with a lot of this. And some of it, by the way, was intentional. And that's one of the things the Trump administration is continuing to dig into, because if we find out that somebody got away with something, there will be hell to pay. Or let's clarify, there should be hell to pay. I'm wondering if there will be, but there most definitely should be hell to pay. Speaking of hell to pay, AR-15s and 20-round magazines are back on the menu at Virginia gun shops. That's right. Coming from Bearing Arms, being reported by Mr. Cam Edwards over there. Well, it looks like the injunction that was put in place to get these things out there, well, looks like it's gone in the right direction. It says, as of today, a statewide injunction is in place that prevents police and prosecutors from enforcing Virginia's ban on so-called assault firearms and large capacity magazines that took effect on July 1. There was originally some confusion about the scope of the injunction issued by Washington County Judge Jeffrey Campbell in Santola v. Katz, an NRA-backed challenge to the gun and magazine ban, alleging the new law violates Article 1, Section 13 of the Virginia Constitution. On July 9th, though Campbell issued an order explicitly stating that the injunction applies to all law enforcement in the state. Attorney General Jay Jones has appealed the decision, but so far the Court of Appeals hasn't scheduled a hearing for his request. And across the Commonwealth, gun store employees I spoke with today informed me that they're back selling magazines with a capacity of more than 15 rounds, along with semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and pistols banned by the Democrat-controlled legislature and Governor Abigail Spanberger. In the end, I really do believe these things are going to wind up getting overturned. And I do believe that the citizens there in Virginia, and by the way, the citizens here in California, are going to be allowed to purchase the most commonly owned rifle in the world, being the centerfire, semi-automatic centerfire rifle with detachable magazine. Now, there may be some features, because, I hate to say this, but we got some of the folks even on the conservative end who don't mind some quote-unquote regulation. They say it shouldn't be unreasonable regulation, but we all know gun grabbers don't care what reasonable is. They don't know what reasonable is. They think allowing you to own a gun is unreasonable. So we know that we're not going to get anything fair from them. Anything quote-unquote reasonable from them, that's a big stretch. So I'm not going to hold my breath that they're going to get it right. Anyway. Speaking, by the way, of bad laws in California, there's one that we're working to try and kill right now. It has to do with, it's a grocery store bill. Now, this is a bill that would kill potential coupon programs. And this is basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the story about it, and it'll kind of explain exactly what's going on here. And then see what you guys see. And then we'll talk about it a little bit on the flip side, see what you guys think.
Whether it's electronics, food, or clothing, there is no denying the convenience of online shopping.
Too convenient. But you know who else it's convenient for? Businesses. Sergio Flores from NBC7 and Telemundo 20 Response is here to tell us about surveillance pricing.
Right. Okay, Jackie and Monica, imagine the three of us went online shopping, right? but we pay a different price for the same product based on where we live, how we buy, and what device we're using even. That's called surveillance pricing. Now, is it fair? Well, I suppose it depends on who you ask.
Let's start by stating the obvious. Businesses want to make as much money as possible, while consumers would like to save as much as they can. And so, surveillance pricing allows companies to set their prices according to each buyer's individualized data, which shows their ability and willingness to pay more or less. According to the FTC, this includes location, which gauges wealth and proximity to a physical store. Online shopping behavior exposes browsing patterns, clicks, mouse movements, and items left in abandoned shopping carts. Personal data shows employment, income levels, and other information that identifies a user's demographics. And past transactions show how much you're willing to pay for a product.
Even the device you use to shop online can be used by companies to set prices specifically for you, according to the FTC. I mean, the owner of the latest and greatest smartphone may have more money to burn than the owner of a less expensive option.
The price on the shelf should be the same price for everybody.
State Assembly member Chris Ward from San Diego has introduced a bill that would stop surveillance pricing in California.
When they say, you live in San Diego, so you should pay a higher price because people make a little bit more money here than, say, you living in Riverside. Well, we should pay the same thing for the same good, regardless of who we are or where we live.
And then there is the surveillance part of it all. It just hits differently when consumers don't know this is happening.
Transparency is everything. And so if you know going into it sort of what the price is and why it was set that way, you can make an option as a customer, as a consumer.
Accelerator Award is rightly focused on affordability in California and trying to avoid targeted price increases on California consumers. And that's not something that the Chamber of Commerce has a problem with.
What Cal Chamber does have a problem with, according to its VP of Advocacy, is that Ward's bill also affects the benefits to consumers that come with surveillance pricing.
It encompasses both price increases and price discounts as surveillance pricing. So we have been trying to work with the author to get price discounts exempted broadly.
Plus, should the bill become law, Cal Chamber fears it'll open the cash register to lawsuits affecting businesses and consumers.
We're afraid that businesses who are not doing anything problematic, we would say, are still going to face lawsuits where they have to then go through months and hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation to prove they're not violating this bill.
But you, the consumer, are not completely at the mercy of the bill to avoid paying more because of surveillance pricing. There is the Delete Request and Opt-out Platform, or DROP, a state program that gives consumers control over their data collected by third-party brokers. Little hacks you can also do include erasing cookies on your search history, shopping using different devices to make sure you're getting the best deal, using private browsing, shopping logged out of the platform, and using price tracking tools. Because if companies are leaning on technology to maximize their profits, you should do the same to maximize your savings.
All right, so this is a bill. This is over at the California Post. This controversial grocery bill would kill coupon programs, and that's really what it comes down to. Is this? And I hate to say this, and people are probably going to look at me kind of funny. I'm against this bill. I'm against this bill because, first of all, rule number one: let the buyer beware. Just like in many of these cases, they're not necessarily they're not using the technology to make you pay more. They're using the technology to provide discounts. So, for example, they might notice that I'm willing to pay, $20 less for a particular camera, right? Maybe it's still within the profit margin of that company, and they know, well, look, he's paid that for that before. Maybe he'll pay it again, right? And all of a sudden, that thing pops up. I noticed, for example, I've been working on changing my digital ecosystem with cameras and whatnot, and I've noticed that there's a particular camera that I like. I bought 2 of them now, and I didn't pay full price for either one of them, right? I got them both at a really good deal, and it took me forever to find those deals. Interestingly, all of a sudden I see the same camera popped up. I can get a third camera at that same price. Ooh, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But once again, it's a deal. Here's the thing. Ultimately, you decide whether or not you want to buy or not. Ultimately, you're the one that's in control. All it's doing is it's looking at, basically it's trying to identify, what can I get you to pay? In order for you to pay it, you have to be willing to pay it. So all you gotta do is say, well, I'm not willing to pay that. And guess what? The price will come down. It's really that simple. So I get that, but this is how Democrats, I hate to say that, this is what Democrats try to do with affordability. They try to regulate their way out of affordability instead of just let the market work. Let the market work, right? If I won't pay that if I don't have to pay that. I wrote a piece, once again, it was almost 2 years ago, and it was really talking about how what has driven up the costs in places like California and like New York. And overwhelmingly, it is market manipulation, regulation, and taxation. And all three of those mean liberal democratic government. Liberal Democrats love all three of those. They love manipulating the market in order to create equity, right? They love price floors or price ceilings, right? Price floors on labor, right? Minimum wage, right? They want to put price ceilings. They want to put in rent controls. All of these things screw up supply and demand and get away from the price that you're willing to pay and that the people selling it are willing to accept. Right? And guess what? You're not going to pay it if you can't afford it. Which means then, if you're not going to pay it, demand goes down, price goes down. It's simple, basic economics, and the left can't figure it out. They just don't get it. They are economically ignorant. And it is beyond frustrating. And then you wonder why places like, once again, like California, places like New York are so outrageously expensive. And it's their own fault. And that's why when you leave California, when you leave New York, when you go to places like Texas, like Florida, like Arizona, right? When you go to places where the economy is actually working, don't screw it up. When you go there, remember, you are a refugee, not a missionary. You did a piss poor job of electing people where you were. Whether you were voting for the right people or not, evidently your people weren't getting elected. So you felt you had to leave. So how about this? How about make sure you don't elect the same sort of people who are getting elected in the state you came from? Because they're going to do the same exact stuff. Let's be wise. Let's operate with some wisdom, right? Sometimes wisdom is nothing more than learning from your mistakes. How about we learn from our mistakes? How about if you come from California, learn from the mistakes of California? It ain't that hard. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your hog holster today. This first one here, this is following up. Gotta love the news about the explosive diarrhea. It's just, it is the story that keeps on giving. This is from, this is a sign. I don't know if this is an actual real sign. Let me clarify this, but it is a parody and it's funny, so I'm going to mention it. This is a sign outside of a Taco Bell. It says here, Taco Bell. It says, "Stop acting like you've never gotten explosive diarrhea here before. Who called the news?" Yeah, that right there, very funny right there. That's very funny right there. Now, here's another one. Now, we talked a little bit about elections. Here's a video that's talking about election and election fraud and the fact that, before we start calling the 2020 election the freest and fairest election in history, maybe we should consider a few things.
Is it not true that Joe Biden won the 2020 election?
Senator, it is true that the 2020 election resulted in the certification of Joe Biden as president. But if you will allow me, since you want to bring up 2020, 3,930 double scan ballots in Fulton County. 39,000 residents of Fulton County who had filed a national change of address form with the U.S. Post Office voted in that election. We know that 84% of those 39,000, either by their own admission or the filing of a new voter registration, were likely ineligible to vote in that election. We know that 315,000 ballot tapes were not certified and maintained a chain of custody as they were supposed to. And we know that there are thousands of missing ballot images from the 2020 election. The data also shows us that it appears that those 3,930 double scam ballots was done intentionally. Now, I have told the story in this well of Gabriel Sterling before, but I'll tell it again. Because Gabriel Sterling purchased his home in 2018 from an individual who then moved out of the state of Georgia. Gabriel Sterling, as you know, Senator, was the chief operating officer for the Secretary of State in Georgia. Gabriel Sterling was shocked to receive a piece of mail from Fairfight telling him to return his ballot, that Gabriel Sterling received a piece of mail addressed to the individual who had sold him the home, who was living out of state, from Fairfight. And Fairfight was reminding that individual who lived out of state to return their ballot because it was requested by the mail. Sterling then does a little investigation of his own and discovers this individual who had moved out of state voted in the 2020 presidential election illegally. That vote was counted. It was rescanned and counted again in a recount, and it was counted in the hand count, Senator. So I would tell you, due to the shenanigans of 2020, I don't believe that we can say we know who the rightful winner was. We do, of course, know that Joe Biden was certified, but I do not believe that we know, due to the small margin of error, who the actual winner was.
Yeah, that was deep right there. That was deep. And once again, Democrats are in complete and utter denial. And once again, I'm going to tell you that I do not have, and I have yet to see irrefutable evidence that the election was stolen specifically at the ballot box. We've talked about, we've talked about what the media did and the complete media malpractice. We've talked about the changing of the voting laws in the middle of the game. We talked about all that, and I believe all of that does constitute a stealing of the election. But once again, Democrats refuse to admit that our election and our election process is not nearly as protected as they want you to believe that it is. All right, this next one here, and I always joke about this one with Mike and Earl and those guys. A lot of people want to insinuate that there is not white culture. Like in this country, we have subcultures. We do. We have black culture. We have Latino culture. We got Southern culture. We got country culture. We got West Coast culture. Well, guess what, folks? We do have white culture as well.
I think it's good to have friends of other ethnicities, other races. You learn a lot. You can have real conversations. My black friend.
Whoops, hold on. I just realized I didn't set it all the way. Let me redo this here. Bam. Now we'll do it from here.
Always blows my mind. He told me recently that white people have no culture. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, we got stuff. We got NASCAR and Bass Pro Shop and kissing dogs on the mouth. We got New Balance, Monster Energy drinks, kale, speaking to the manager, school shootings, trailer park, hacky sack, banjo, line dancing, bland food, aging terribly. Don't stop. That's white culture. All right. Always fascinating when a black guy says white people have no culture, because black people are the best at pointing out white culture. You ever watching Shark Week with a black friend? There's some scuba guy with 10 sharks around him. Your black friend's like, that's some white people shit. That's just another term for white culture. Yeah, whitey's got stuff. When I was a baby, my dad taught me how to swim by throwing me in a pool. Do that to a black kid. That's a fucking homicide. That's honky shit right there. You know what else is white culture? Homoerotic behavior. I grew up with 8 white dudes flicking me in the nuts, titty twister me, credit card swipe me. Try to teabag a black guy. He will shoot you in the face. All right? That is cracker.
Yes, he will. All right, folks. That's going to be it for today's program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got Hitman Industries, the makers of rifle and pistol caliber barrels, available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. We got the California Republican Assembly, helping to elect conservatives at all levels of government. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, that would be at uscombatgear.com. All right, so that's going to be it for today. We will be back tomorrow on Hump Day. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you mañana.